Welcome back to Goldshaw Farm. Now, if you guys recall in our last video, I am a brand new cattle owner and I just got the cattle delivered to the farm and they escaped and they were running loose here on the farm. And despite my best efforts, I wasn't able to pen them up in the poly wire. And so I figured today I owed you guys an update and kind of show you where I'm at with my progress. Morning, geese. I'm gonna leave that on so it stays electrified. I gotta close this gate ever so quietly. And you guys are probably gonna notice that I'm whispering to you today. I'm doing that because I don't want to spook the cattle. Hey geese, do you guys mind not spooking the cattle either? Would you look at that? Looks like Mr. Toby Dog found an egg. You know, last year I made a couple videos about this where Toby Dog was starting to pick up the duck eggs that would get left randomly around the farm and leave them for me. He hasn't done it in a while, but looks like I got one. Speaking of Toby Dog, you guys might be wondering where he's at, but it looks like he's up in the pasture. He's out there wandering around the permaculture orchard, watching over the trees apparently. Maybe he's making some dirt or something, I don't know. Release the Quacken! Chickens, how's it going? Good to see everybody this morning. Try to keep it down. I'm starting to leave that door open so the silkies can go out and just wander around. Pretty soon I'm gonna expand their pen. Look at these three little guys running around. Where are you going? Your mom's back here. Hey buddy, what you been doing? You been out there wandering? Oh dear, what's this? Have you been rolling in cow poop? Oh man. I think the days of Toby Dog having very few baths are coming to an end. Looks like he just rolled in cow poop. I think I'm gonna have to probably clean him up later this morning. Gross. You are a gross dog. Speaking of the cattle, I know you guys are probably dying to see where the cattle are, so let me show you. Well, if you recall, my paddock that I had originally set up for the cattle was over there on that side, but now all you can see over there are just some geese. The other day I ended up setting up my paddock in a new spot, so you can see 2 strands of poly braid right there. You can also see the cattle waterer right there. They got some minerals over there as well. And so I actually moved the paddock to the other side of the pasture because what I have discovered is that the cattle's favorite spot on the farm is up there by those trees. They're up there hanging out, doing their thing. The other day I was actually successfully able to rope off that top portion of the pasture. They now are officially contained. As you can see here, there's like an alleyway that they can wander down to if they want to go to the larger paddock. My plan is to ultimately start working them down the hill and through that alley and get them in here. But I'm really willing to give that a couple of days time. I feel like I learned my lesson the other day, and I am not trying to rush anything with these cattle. I'm just being slow, deliberate, patient, and intentional in how I'm working with them. And I would say it's probably too soon to say if it's paying off or not, but it has definitely become less stressful for me, no doubt about it. One thing I have noticed though is my plan to use apples as treats for the cows isn't quite working because the geese seem way more into it than the cattle do. Geese absolutely love apples. Now I just tested this fence last night and it was quite hot. I think it was putting out about 12,000 volts. And as you guys have noticed, I put soda cans around the pasture on the fence. Potentially attract the cattle's attention and have them lick it. That's another suggestion I've received on how to train them to the electric fence. Because right now that's my biggest objective, is to get them to know and respect this fencing that I have here, so that ultimately I can start to move them down the hill and into this paddock. And then what I'll do from there is start to rotationally graze them along this pasture. And when I say rotationally graze them, I don't just mean like break our pasture into 4 quadrants and let them move around there from month to month. I mean actually getting in there and doing it with some intention. Oh wow, look at this. So you can kind of hear my geese freaking out in the background because we have a whole giant flock of Canada geese up there. I guess generally speaking, that's sort of south that they're flying. Our geese are like, what's up with that? Hope those guys stay away. If they're all meeting up. If there's even a flock overhead of me here. They're going up to join that bigger flock, I think. I wonder if they're looking at our farm saying, hey, would this be a good place to land? And then they're seeing our geese already here saying, hey, this is already our spot. Or maybe they're doing this lap to try to attract our geese, saying, hey guys, come on, join us. We got a big old convoy coming. And you're welcome to join us. I love seeing the seasonal change happen around the farm here. This is now the 4th fall that I've experienced where I've had animals on the farm, and I feel like I'm finally getting into the rhythm of it all. It's pretty beautiful and magical. You know, when I first read about it, the idea of mob grazing really intrigued me, because it's very much about having your animals mimic nature. You know, I think back to, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago when I was just in the early stages of buying this farm and planning about what I'd want this farm to be. I actually drew a little comic in my notebook that I feel like really explained mob grazing pretty well. You know, essentially all I was saying is that mob grazing is the term that's used to describe a high number of ruminants grazing in a very small area on a pasture for a very short period of time. The concept is really based and rooted in natural grazing patterns of wild nomadic ruminants. The animals move in compact herds over vast tracts of land, eating down the available forage and avoiding predators. You know, you think about it, right? Back in the day, there were many different types of ruminants that would do this on a migrating basis. You know, these days, really, there's only the wildebeest and the caribou left. So given these roots, how does mob grazing work? Well, all ruminants eat grass, whether they're cattle or sheep or even geese, you could argue. You know, they leave manure and they trample the pasture. That manure becomes a feast for numerous amounts of creatures, both large scale and small scale in the soil. After the grass has been eaten down, it grows very quickly in the nutrient dense soil. And then that fast growing grass provides more food for more ruminants. When it's done in a farming context to avoid overgrazing, the farmer moves the animals frequently using portable electric fencing to create these temporary paddocks. And then ultimately one large pasture is broken up into little parcels that are moved along very frequently and very quickly. You don't want your animals sitting in one spot for a month overgrazing. You want to try to move them as quickly as possible. And when done properly, mob grazing is good for both the animals and the pasture. And in fact, you know, cows often get a really bad rap when it comes to their environmental impact. But if you look at cattle that are raised in like a concentrated feeding operation, a lot of that rap is well deserved. Having lots of ruminants jammed together like that, being fed grain, having no place for their manure to perfectly compost, that's really bad for the land. But if you're doing mob grazing, that's something very different. That's actually something where you can be regenerative, you can sequester carbon, you can help maintain pasture land, you can improve the quality of soil, you can make that soil more drought resistant. All of those things are things that I want to do right here on my farm. But the problem I'm facing right now is that my cattle just don't know and understand and respect that temporary electric fencing. Without knowing that fencing and knowing how to use that fencing, my whole system kind of breaks down pretty quickly, and it's impossible for me to mob graze. And so right now, over these next few weeks and maybe months, my goal is to teach these cattle to know and respect the fencing. What do you think, Mr. Toby Dog? Are we ever going to be able to do this? You know, the cattle were out here free for about 4 days. I was really worried that they'd do a number on my trees, but so far they all look pretty good, and I don't feel like I've seen too much major damage from the cattle. But one thing I have seen is that the cattle have been depositing their manure in all sorts of random spots. Like this was the spot where I originally introduced them to, and you can see there's a couple cow pies, boom, right there. As you take a good close look at this cow pie, you can see, I don't know, it's probably about 3 or 4 days old, and it's starting to dry out and break down. We haven't had any rain. What you're going to start to see is insects like flies are going to start making their home. And that's why having things like the ducks out here in the pasture doing their thing is going to be great, because animals like the ducks and the chickens are going to root through there and eat the insects. It's going to feed my ducks, and it's going to also help make sure that I don't have lots of flies here on the farm. The other nice thing it's gonna do is it's gonna help break down this cow pie much quicker and spread it around so that we have good fertility all across the soil here. But again, the best laid farming plans can all go to waste if you can't execute. Right now I'm struggling to execute, but it is getting a little bit better. So let's go sneak up quietly and see how the cattle are doing and take a little bit of a closer look, huh? And Toby Dog, you can come with me, buddy, but you're gonna have to be on your best behavior, okay? I know, Toby Dog, we're taking the long way, but I don't want to risk spooking the cattle way over there. So I know I kind of am taking a little bit of a risk in doing this. Would you look at that? Pablo Barn Cat actually followed us up here. We're actually now at the back corner of the silvopasture permaculture orchard. Cattle are directly on the other side of this. If I had to guess, they're probably about 700 feet away, just down over there. Pablo so rarely comes up here. I think he's only up here because Toby and I came up here. And wherever Toby and I seem to go, Pablo likes to follow. Where you lead, I will follow. What you doing there, Toby? He's marking his territory. This whole fenced in area, which is, like I said, about 10 acres, is Toby's entire roaming domain. We don't let him roam any further past that, but it's a good area for him to stay in. Like I said earlier, one of the biggest things I was worried about were my trees getting eaten. Right here you can actually see, I believe it's a black walnut. It's still looking really good, in good shape. Like this one right here, I think is a chestnut, but it looks dead, and so I'll probably replace it later this fall. All right, let's keep creeping down to see the cattle. I don't think you're gonna see a morning view more majestic than that. I mean, look at it. Our tiny little farm, fall glory, all the mountains in the background. It's pretty magical. Pablo, don't be scared. I'm over here, man. I think Pablo's a little nervous when he gets this far from the farm. Like I said, he only comes up here if Toby and I come up here. Not quite a lion on the savannah. I really don't want to spook the cattle and have them break loose again. Number one, it would suck to have them loose. But number two, gives them more chance to not respect our electric fence. And that's a problem. Uh-oh, I think they got a little spooked. I heard them move. I can see them just past that bush. Do you guys see them? There they are. Mr. Toby Dog's watching over them. As much as I need them to get used to me, I also need them to get used to Mr. Toby Dog. And I gotta get Mr. Toby Dog used to them. I think it's probably less important for them to get used to Pablo. You can see I got the soda cans up here as well. My intention is just to kind of hang out here with them and have them continue to get used to me being here. Have them not see me as a threat. Yeah, look at this one, it's coming a little bit closer. So what's been really nice is the fact that I have this electric wire going around the entire perimeter, because that means when I set up a polywire fence, I can just tap right into it and get a nice full charge. I wonder if they've tested this fence out. They've been inside of here less than 24 hours, but actually if you look around the ground here, you can see it's been decimated by the cattle. So when I talk about that mob grazing activity, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Whereas, say the grass over here is still long and green and looking great, this stuff looks like it's just been decimated by a herd of wild bison. You got poops everywhere, you got stuff trampled, and that's exactly what I want. They didn't eat the grass down too far, because they're really only in this spot for maybe about a day, day and a half. Toby Dog, don't eat cow poop, man. You're already eating enough duck poop. You don't need to have that in your system too. What's gonna happen is probably a week from now, this area is gonna start to spring back to life. When it comes time for spring to actually hit, this is gonna be probably lush and nice and look even better than that pasture over there. That really speaks to why I'm so gung-ho about having these guys on the farm. I think they're gonna do so good for the land. And the more and more I get into the whole farming thing, the more and more I realize it's about the impact the animal has on the land and not so much about just the animal itself. For me, my job is less about taking care of each specific animal and making sure they have everything that they need, even though that's important, but it's about making sure that the land and the animals all work together so that everybody has what they need. It's sort of a mindset shift that when I went into this, I was thinking about it. But as I started with just the ducks and as I was just raising poultry, I probably thought about it a lot less. Adding these guys into the mix has me thinking about it a lot more. Now, in terms of what's next for them, I'm gonna keep letting them work themselves down this way. At a certain point, they're gonna overgraze and eat all the grass that's here and want to start to move down further down towards the duck and goose area. The shape of my paddocks is kind of like a barbell, so I have this big area right here, which I set up just in the name of trying to capture them, and then there's kind of a narrower alleyway that I don't want to really test and try to drive them through too soon. Then when they get back down to the pasture, they have all that nice lush grass, and I can try to close them off. And once I do that, I'm going to keep them there for a couple more days, and then probably even feed them some hay so they really get used to that. And then I might just start doing some larger, slower rotations and moving them through the permaculture orchard. But once the snow really starts to fly and we have too much snow on the ground for them to be able to get access to any of the grass, I'll move them inside to the barn, and then I'm going to feed them those giant white marshmallow bales of hay. You know, these cattle have pretty much everything that they need right now. They've got grass, they got shade. The only things that they don't really have right in front of them is water. And I have that giant 100-gallon water trough ready to go for them. They didn't seem like they drank from it last night, but I know that they went into the pond the night before. I bet you at some point today they're going to migrate their way down south. I set up a trail camera last night and didn't see any movement though, so who knows. A lot of this speaks to how I'm just trying to now let them move at their own pace. You know, let them be kind of going slowly, let them go where they want to go initially at first. You know, they're still adjusting to the farm here. They've only been here for, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 days? And so they've still got a lot to get used to. You know, working with them is even how I changed my paddock structure, right? When they first arrived, I had them down there, and I was trying to keep them on that side. And even when they broke loose and they were hanging out up here, up on the top where I'm standing right now, I realized that my best bet would be to try to corral them into a space where they were comfortable versus try to push them into a space where they feel like a lot less comfortable. What I'm noticing specifically about these Scottish Highlander cattle, they like those trees. It seems like that's their happy thing. So why fight it? Let them go where they are comfortable. They're more comfortable up along against the forest than they are in kind of this open space over here where you see houses and barns and you've got geese yelling at you. So I'm just trying to make them happy. You know, one question I did get about our cattle is that people are wondering if we're going to name them. And the answer is yes, we do plan on naming them. They all came to our farm without any names, and I don't quite feel like I have like a sense for them yet, so I don't want to give them names too soon. The naming scheme that we're going to be using is I'm going to be calling them, if they're a first generation animal on our farm, they're going to have an A name. So like, you know, Anna or Annabelle, or I shouldn't call them Allison because I think Allison would get mad about that. They'll all have names with the letter A. When they're a second generation female bovine, they'll have a B name. If they're third generation, C, fourth, D. My intention is to kind of keep working my way through the alphabet. I don't know if I could make it to 26 generations, but if I could, that'd be pretty cool. It would just be an easy way to kind of keep track mentally of the various lineages. Uh-oh, Toby's sneaking in there. They're getting used to Toby. They're not like super freaked out by him. They're much more freaked out by me than they are by him. He's not quite sure what to make of them. Like, I think he's realizing that they're now a part of the farm, that he needs to treat them with care and respect. But he also knows they're not like a duck that he can chase off or a chicken that he can bark away. Toby duck, come on, back in here. He's still learning, as you can see. Pablo, meanwhile, I don't think he wants anything to do with these guys. So this one cow that you see right here, she's one of the older ones. I think she's pregnant. Hope she's pregnant. Also, we have this black one who I think she's also pregnant too. Toby just heard some movement down over by the birds, and so he's heading back to check on them. I know what caused the movement. It's these guys. More of the geese flying through. So Toby's just like, I gotta check on everything, make sure it's all okay. Our geese are a little spooked. And meanwhile, the cattle just kind of march on. But yeah, I was doing the cow introductions for you. So we got that guy right there, he's our steer. And we got these two heifers. So they're the two younger ones right here on the left. I think they're also both pregnant as well. I like her. She's a really pretty gal. Look at her with that grass in her mouth. You know, as I'm spending time out here right now with them, one thing I am wondering is, Should I try to move this fence in just a little bit? And so like what I could do is cut it down so that it goes straight across here, so they lose all this space. I'll probably wait another day or two to do this. I'm gonna just keep coming out here every day, a couple times a day, just talking to him. Uh-oh, Mr. Toby Dog's getting curious again. There he is, eating that cow poop again. If anybody has any suggestions on how to get your dog to stop eating cow poop, I'd be all ears. And usually I would reprimand him in this situation, but I don't want to reprimand him and have him freak out the cows. I got to admit, it's pretty much like heaven being up here with Toby Dog and Pablo and the cows. You know, when I dreamed of being on a farm and what my mornings would look like, this right here, what we're doing today, this is pretty much it. I love it. Would you look at that? That right there is definitely the work of Miss Molly Murder Mittens. That was one of Pablo's kills. It would be completely consumed. Molly doesn't like to eat them nearly as much, do you, sweetie? Good work right there. You're doing your job. It's one less mouse settling in the barn for winter. Good work. Now, some of you guys might be wondering about Genie Barn Cat, Molly's daughter. And well, let me give you an update on her. So since you last saw her, she had just had surgery to get spayed, and she's been in surgery recovery. And I'm sure you can probably hear her. She's not been happy. Quite the cranky kitty, in fact. You see, I've had her staying in this room in the barn. Let's see, today is officially day 10 because she was supposed to stay contained for 7 to 10 days so that her scar could heal up. Well, since today is day 10, I think I'm gonna let her out. Well, look at that little tiny kitten paw. Ow! Okay, hang on, sweetie. I gotta check you before I can let you out, though. Gotcha. Hold on, let me just look at your scar. Ooh, looks pretty good. Sorry I couldn't get it on camera, she's a little feisty. Ooh, Mom's not happy to see you. But I know you're super hungry, so let me feed you. Hang on. It's like I've never fed this kitten her entire life. That's some food, glorious food for little Ginger in there. Well, I'm glad to see you're out and recovered. It probably feels really good, huh, sweetheart? Yeah, it does. Good to see you. I missed you too.